So I decided to change it up, and I'm out at a small city lake where they stock some small trout. Still throwing the lipless crankbait in hopes of maybe catching a bass, but hooked up with this small trout here, just a little rainbow, and it totally engulfed the back treble hook on this crankbait. So we'll get it unhooked here, get a look at this little trout, and let it go for somebody else to catch. Then I make a move. I'm switched up to a little 1/8 ounce jig head and a 1.5 inch little paddle tail shad lure, and hooked up with this little trout. A little bit bigger than the last one. So I try and show this fish off a little bit. They're really slimy and he doesn't want to cooperate, so he's going back in the lake. Cast back out and hook up with another trout. And this one's a fat little trout here. He's got a nice fat belly on this one. Fought a little bit harder than the last one. As it gets released back in the lake here. And then I finally hook up on my other rod. I'm fishing 2 pools. Got one with a bobber and a jig and crappie tube on there. And finally got hooked up on it. I was getting lots of bites on it, but I wasn't getting them hooked up. And this kind of probably explains why I wasn't hooking very many of them, because it's a really small crappie. Little black crappie here. So I'm just throwing this little jig out there and I'm working it fairly fast. There's a lot of algae bloom going on in this lake. So if you let it sink down too much, you just end up with a bunch of slimy algae all over your lure and wasted a cast. But working this lure, in, and just shaking it once in a while, making that tail really wiggle. Yep, another crappie here, another little crappie. I wanted to catch some crappie over here today, but I was hoping for some bigger ones than these. Just little potato chip crappies here. No, this one's a little bit bigger than the last one, I think. About the same. As we let this fish go, we get our lure cleaned off here and get back out there. Get back to swimming this little jig. And we hook up with another fish here, and this one is a trout. Little jumper trout here. These really small trout, you really want to use like an ultralight pole to make it at least a little bit sporting. Otherwise, you just pretty much drag them in and they just pretty much spin around. And it's not too much fun, but on an ultralight pole they fight pretty good. As we switch spots here, you can see all the algae along the bank here. Got another little trout hooked up. And he comes off right before the weeds there. These trout are really frustrating. You get around them and it's like multiple bites every cast, and they just keep on biting the tail of it. You can't get them hooked up. There's one. You know, it's just really frustrating fishing. I'd recommend using a little crankbait for these fish. Something with a couple small treble hooks on it, so your hookups will be better. But I don't have one of those little crankbaits with me at the moment, so I'm just going to have to keep fishing this little jig here. As I change spots again, I change over to a little bit bigger shad tail swim bait, and I hook up with my only bass of the day. And it's a pretty decent one, especially on this little ultralight pole. I get it up to the bank here, and it's about a 14 or 15-inch largemouth. So we finally caught us a bass today. Not a bad one. We let this fish go. And we hook up with the last fish of the day, another trout on the bigger swim bait here. Doesn't fight a whole lot here, but we get it in. Get it unhooked. And take a look at this fish. So it falls off down on the end of the grass. We get it picked up here, show it off a little bit, and let it flop back into the lake. So we caught a few fish today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching as always, and we'll catch you on the next one.